Welcome back. In this session, we'll take a look at transforming the cases and debts data that we ingested into our data lake from the ECDC website. As you know, we loaded this data into our data lake. Let's switch over to the Azure Storage Explorer and have a look at that now. Here we are in the Storage Explorer, and this is our data lake COVID reporting DL. And under that we had the container called raw, and we ingested our data into the ECDC folder. And the file we are interested in is the cases and debts. I've already downloaded the file and opened it up in Excel. So let's have a look at the data. And this is the data we've got. So as you can see, we got data not only from Europe, we got data from other continents as well. But the other files we are dealing with have got only European data. And also we are only interested in analyzing the European data and also reporting on those ones. So the first thing we would want to do is to filter only Europe data. And secondly, as you can see, we got the country code here in the ISO 3-digit format. But some of the other files, if I switch over to testing data, has got the 2-digit country code, and some of the other files didn't even have a country code. So what we'll do is we'll take the country name, and I've created a lookup file which I'll show you in a bit. And we'll look up the file to get the 2-digit and the 3-digit country codes and make it standard across all of our files. So it's quite easy to join on any of the country codes or the country names to get the information the analyst or the reporting queries wanted to. And we'll keep the population that is quite useful and indicator. So we have got an indicator on a daily count, but we don't really have a column to say this is the confirmed cases count and this is the deaths counts. So instead of having an indicator and then carrying on that to get the count, it'll be easier if we have a confirmed cases count and a deaths count. So what we'll do is we'll take these two columns and then we'll pivot the data based on the values within them. So which will be confirmed cases and deaths. And date, it just says date. So we'll just rename the column to say it's reporting date or reported date or one of those. So rate 14 date, this gives us the 14-day rate for the cases and deaths. We can calculate that ourselves because we got all the information we need. So we would drop this column, we don't want that. And we'll keep the source column itself because it's quite useful to know the validity of the data. So just to summarize the transformations we want to perform, the raw file looks like this, and the transform the file would look in this structure, and we would want to filter only the Europe data, and country would be mapped to country. And we are keeping the country code 3-digit, and we'll map the population as it is, and we are going to derive the cases count from the indicator and the data count, and the deaths counts is calculated in a similar manner. And we were going to rename the date into reported date. And source we keeping as it is, and we are going to remove the continent, and the rate 14 day we are removing the continent because we are only keeping Europe data. So it doesn't make sense to have the continent on the transformed file. And we will use the lookup that I was talking about to get the country code 2-digit. So before we go ahead and create the transformation, let's have a look at the lookup file, and also we'll create a smaller file for the raw data so that we can easily debug. And we'll upload the files into the storage account, and then we'll start developing the transformation. Okay, so here is the lookup file I was talking about. So we got a country code 2-digit, country code 3-digit, continent, and population. So that is kind of a nice lookup file which we can use to carry based on any of the fails and get the rest of the information. So let's upload this into our storage account so that it's available for us to consume within our data flow. So let me switch over to the Storage Explorer. I'll create another container called lookup and we'll upload the file into here. So that'll be upload files, and then I need to select it from my data. Okay, so that's my country lookup file and I've uploaded that. One more thing to do before we start building our transformation is to create a smaller file for our input so that we can easily debug that. Let me switch a bit to the spreadsheet. So this is the one, and if I do a filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one country which is not in Europe so that we can make sure our filter is working, and one within Europe. So I'm going to go for UK, which is GBR, and also I'm going to pick India so that we got two countries, and that is 1,192 records as opposed to the 1.2 million, which is more manageable. So I'm going to save this. Let's now copy this data and create a new file which would contain only the data for UK and India. So that would be, okay, let's call this file as UK India only. Let's now upload this data into a storage account. So that would be under raw ECDC, and then we want to upload the file there. Okay, so once we've done our testing, what we'll do is we'll delete that testing file and we'll repoint at the cases deaths file so that we can process all of the data. So with that, we got everything we need to set up before building the transformation. So in the next session, we'll start building our data flow. See you then.